I mean, even the fact that she sings barefoot. I've already fucked up my legs and my feet so bad with all this high heel nonsense shenanigans.
What? Also, I feel like when I'm wearing shoes, I'm thinking about wearing shoes.
Yeah,
Is that weird?
no, it's annoying. It's
Right?
I'm just in awe and in love with your talent and your voice, and everything you're doing is just so elevated and beautiful, I think, to so much of what I see, and your own unique vibe in your musicianship and artistry. It just seems like you just definitely you can tell your core is music based. Like it's about that first, and I love that about you because I think, you hear, especially when you have a really, a hit song and it's breaking wide open, you don't really get a full feel of, what an artist is really about until you really see someone do it live. And then when I saw you, I was like, but what? Like, she's gonna be around.
Oh, stop! That makes
I'm like, she's here to stay. Wow. I see what's happening here. And I was just so drawn to it because you built this whole, I don't want to say persona, because I feel like you're so versatile, in what you can do. And I love that about you too. You can like break it wide open on a beat and just literally give it that sort of swag or make it orchestral. And I guess that was my question, is where do you get all these jazz influences?
And I feel like we're all just so sponges. I think like what we listen to and feed ourselves is subconsciously what we regurgitate, I guess. So I think for me, I've been just listening to the greats, especially over the last 2-3 years. It's just Ella and Etta and Dinah Washington. And I love jazz. I don't know why. Like I've kind of stumbled on it because I grew up in a house of like, it was a lot of gospel, and I grew up in the church. It was kind of like a lot of like
soul music.
Yeah, church music, and kind of, when they're up there playing, and then the vibe changes and they all go with the vibe, and it's not rehearsed, and it's kind of ad-libbed and stuff like that.
But if you're gonna go jazzy, you have to be able to back that up vocally. You know what I mean?
That's
so like that's why like I love also, like, I just feel like both of us being vocalists, we're drawn to things that are a bit challenging, and like I just even love how your vibrato sound like that like all your note choices. I love listening to true vocalists, who really pick and choose the notes and the intricacies that go into each stylistic choice within a live performance, because it's one thing to do it on record, but you are challenging yourself with every big performance to see, how you're revamping that. Do you work with a very specific, like, because after doing it, so many years, I just know, like, I had someone that I worked very closely with as like my musical director for some time, and then people have kids, people have lives, like things change, or, people take, whatever happens, life is life. But how does that work for you? What is your process? Do you have someone you work very closely with?
So I'm so lucky that I've had this tour manager who worked with me since I started out doing shows about 15, and he loves music and it plays a couple of instruments and stuff like that. So he was my tour manager for ages, but as we got to know each other better, I was like, oh, you just really just want to be in the thick of the music. And now we're at a place where we travel around everywhere together, and then we make the arrangements. We do it all on a laptop whilst we're on the road. And then once we have the arrangements we love.
It's your tour manager?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so we literally do it together.
Is he a producer?
He's just a musician, like a proper muso though.
What does he play?
He plays bass, he plays keys, he plays guitar.
And he's your tour manager.
And so he used to be a session musician.
Too?
No.
I was like, that's a lot of hats.
No, like... he's called Pete. He's called Pete Clements, and he's amazing. But he's now my musical director, and we do it together, really. And it allows it to be, we have loads of different versions and edits, and also an intention, because it's like, for a moment like SNL, like, I'm like, I want to give the best that I can. I want people to watch that and be like, oh. Yeah. So we're like, how do we cram musicianship in there, but then not do too well, I did way too much. We went for it. But...
I always say, like, your team is your everything. Having your right, like, solid core people in place for you is everything. Because you can be as talented, as amazing as you want to
Yeah.
be, but you have to have the right support system.
Word.
You know, you really do. And just having any support system isn't, you know, isn't going to work. It's having the right one
How
that
do you
sees
know?
you.
Like, especially being, you know, I'm only just starting to do whatever, and you know, you get quite like, and like trust is like such a big thing, and feeling safe around people, like bringing people into your team. Like, how do you know?
You'll never quite know. That's what I've noticed. I mean, I'm a big gut girl. You know, I definitely have always been one that, you know, being true to where my core is and what my truth, where that lies to me is really important sense to me to stay grounded and because yes, this business is crazy, but you know, I don't know. I feel like as an artist too, it's important. I think your biggest gift as an artist is to be able to listen. You know, it's like we exude a lot,
right?
But you know, we're great listeners too. That's why we're absorbing everything.
Facts.
But it's really hard because I'm a person that like I'm you know, what a business to be in as a creative is, you know, when you're a sensitive person, this business is crazy, but there's a lot of things to be learned, you know, over time, and time always tells, but you start to be able to navigate certain things, I think, better, and sometimes it's really disappointing when you're like, really, we're that far in my life as a grown woman. I've been through the crooks and the critics and the this and the that, and like, oh, like I hate when you're like when someone just still does that thing where they disappoint. You know?
That's sad.
But you have to protect it. You know, you have to protect your space and your energy, knowing going into it that you're this kind of way, you're this kind of person. It's our greatest gift to be able to absorb all the energy and feel it and then churn it and regurgitate it in a way that I think our intention is to spread so much joy and love with what we do, and all we want to do is to be able to inspire the next us, you know, at least for me anyway. That's the ultimate goal. And I think what's really hard is that, you know, then you start to, you know, it starts as this like such a fun dream and goal, and you're seeing the musicians that you love, and you know, then you're up there with them, and it's so fun, and sometimes it takes a toll where it's like, oh, I forgot it is a business. It's, you know, it's a lot of work. You have to have endurance, you know, you have to, but I think, and I've always said this, you have to really want to do it, because it can't be about any other reason than wanting to do it, or else it's going to just burn you out and you'll have nothing left. And that's the other thing that you have to be careful of.
Were there moments in your career where you didn't feel in control of your career? And if so, how did you process that?
I mean, I think, so much of it. I mean, I think that this business, I think it's really hard, because as a creative person too, I think that when you truly care, you're like a control freak, you know, and it's really hard to relinquish control. And at the same time, like you have to, at a certain point, to just give yourself away and allow yourself to do that. But look, I've been working since, you know, I was a really little girl.
Literally.
I grew up like singing in like block parties, pool parties, weddings, like 6, 7 years old. Actually, no, like 7, 8. National anthems when I was like 9, and like where my mom ended up residing, moving in with my grandma after my mom and dad got divorced in Pittsburgh. So I did like all the anthems there at a young age, and then and so I've been working. You know, I've been working since I was a kid. Wow. And so also the time I came in to this business, it was a time when there was a really big pop boom. And it was very specific that what a label wanted a pop star to look like, to sound like, to what they wanted us to wear. You know, it was a very specific thing, and it's fine. Like I wanted it so bad, and you're a kid, and I knew what I liked, but every time I even tried to say, you know, or even sing, you know, that first record that I did, we're coming up on the 25th anniversary of it actually this fall. It's crazy. But, and, you know, I still, like, I reinvent the material now, you know, in new ways. But that was definitely a record in a time where, you know, it was definitely told to me like, oh, you can't sing that way. You're over singing. Like, we're not doing runs or ad libs. You know, it was very specific. Like, I did everything I could. But yeah, like when you feel like your voice is stifled in any way, I mean, there's different episodes of that. There's different, you know, that have come within the past, you know, couple of decades. But, you know, yeah, you're going to have situations where you feel like it's the worst feeling in the world when you feel like you have no creative control, or you're in a position where your hands are tied, or you have to be a specific way for television and network and, you know, studio heads that are conservative. You know, it's just no place for an artist. So when my hands feel too bound and tied and I feel like there's no breathing room, I'm also a Sag, so I feel like I need space to like roam free and just go. Then that's where I start to really suffer, and like I know that that's not a healthy place for me to be. So I need to like reevaluate, okay, what are we doing and how do I get back to like where I need to be creatively to be happy? That's why Stripped was called Stripped, because it was just like, let me strip everything down. Yeah, like it was just like almost like a term that was just like felt very like almost visceral, like just like literally strip away anything that I just really feel is like a layer that doesn't feel good, you know, and isn't authentic to me. And that's where all those feelings just were so like bubbled up and busting over from on that record with all my diary entries that I'd been keeping, and where you got like, you know, what people thought was over sexualized dirty, but it was just so freeing to me to fight her, you know, like being wronged, and now my fans call it, like everything happens for a reason. So you have to look at it.
That's fact.
Look at it that way.
But how did you deal with being such a female powerhouse in the time where I feel like, obviously from my perspective, you see things that are wrong now and stuff like that, but like coming up in a time where it really was just gatekeepers and just like sexist, just men being like, do that, do this.
There was a time, where I was just like literally living in New York as a teenager, shopping for a record deal, like couch hopping, and like just trying to, you know, I was around a lot of adult male conversation that was, you know, it's a lot to take in. And this is before, you know, you feel like you have a say in anything, and you're just still like sort of fully minding your P's and Q's, and you're trying to get your foot in the door, and you're just trying to learn everything and absorb everything. Not upset anyone, because trust me, if the wrong person who's being even inappropriate, you know what I mean, gets wind of it, then it's your fault. Like I've been through all of that too. But yes, like I was.
The music you create could never have been that without what you are. But having to kind of shelter that and suppress that in the environment to not upset egos, and dancing around egos.
I think that's a part, probably what pushed that. The fact that I felt there was such a suppression and such a right or wrong way I was told a woman should act or sound or look like or feel like, from a very male perspective, you know, that I was constantly surrounded by, you know, a lot of like male studio heads and producers, and you know, now the industry looks a lot different now. Like there are a lot more female presence, and it's really exciting to see. And also the conversation is more open and communicative, where we see each other more, even though, you know, social media and all the exposure is a lot, and it's unproductive sometimes. It also actually is, I can see where it is a benefit though, because we are able to see each other more from our own personal perspectives, rather than allowing it to just be in a journalist's hands. You know what I mean? Because, which is another question, what does it feel like breaking in a time of all that? Because then you're getting, you know, not just one journalist's perspective that might be off, but like a whole, you know, all the comments, everything. There's just like a lot, you know,
don't even
which I don't even
comments. Do you read comments? Or
absolutely not.
You just don't read them.
I mean, and even my like social, like I have a life. I cannot be like consumed with, you know, that aspect all the time. Like I just can't do it. Like literally, I have to like have my sanity. I want to live my life. I don't like to be affected or feel affected by, you know, people's opinions, or like, I think that's so harmful, you know?
Completely. Okay, so onto that, I would love to ask you, what is right now your top 5 favorite songs that you've ever written?
Probably, you know, I got to do a song on Strip that was about sort of revealing, and Linda Perry at the time, you know, she did Beautiful and all of that. She did a lot of work with me on those records. She encouraged me to do a song called I'm Okay. It was on Strip, about sort of touching on, you know, some of my reflections on my childhood and my strained relationship with my father, and, you know, some of the, you know, chaos and abuse that I had growing up. So probably songs like that. She did it in such a beautiful way. We had this it's such a tender song, and I'm literally crying on the record. So, you know, it was very, so the opposite of like that first record, you know, where I had to feel so confined. It was like, this was just so, when I wanted to go there though, I really wanted to be as vulnerable and open as possible. Oh Mother is one that I dedicated for my mom on Back to Basics. About just like us getting through that.
Song.
Thank you. 3 would be Fighter, probably. Just because my fans have like adopted that term for themselves, because man, they've got such incredible stories. You know, they're just so like ride or die, and they just have, you know, so many stories of their own to tell. And so I almost like, out of respect for them, just like love that song so much more, you know? What is that? 2 more? No, it's not my favorite song sometimes to perform, but it's like if I loosen and have fun with it. Ain't No Other Man is fun, because I got DJ Premier on there, and it was just so fun doing that initial like fun run. Would you do a lot of really fun runs?
Oh girl, yeah, but I've been taking notes from the Queen. I've been taking notes. Your run, on Burlesque, Can I just tell you, that run, I don't even want to do it in front of you because I can't, but I rehearsed and practiced. I could not get it straight away. It took me so long to try and get my voice to just do, and even the way you closed it off was so disgusting. That's a compliment. It was so rude. I was like, oh, do you kind of freestyle things like that, or do you kind of do like 10 runs and choose the one you love the most and then rehearse it to make it perfect and then go? Like, what's the vibe?
No, I'm pretty programmed when it comes to that kind of thing. Yeah. Unless it's like more of like a vibey song where it's like, say like off of Strip, let's just say like Lovin' Me for Me, where it's a very like soft, like like low, like jazz vibey song where you're just like doing airy runs and things like that. But when it's down to business and there's no music and we're going for like a range moment, because you don't also want to like overkill yourself if you don't have an exact vision. You know what I mean? You want to strain your voice, and you're doing like, you know, these endless takes doing, what are we doing? You know, like I love to get to the point and really perfect what it is we're doing, and like go into all like the micro details of what all the little, you know, note placements, as you know, inside of a run. And I have a mathematical approach where literally if you're trying to also communicate with an engineer, like let's do a volume texture shift in like, you know, like say it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's like on the 8th, you know what I mean? Like you have to like you have to put like a number to it, you know what I mean, to be able to communicate. And like it's
wow. So you'll group each note by a number and be like,
to be able to communicate
7
it.
is this, I need it to be that.
Because I'm not the girl that sits behind a line board visually and does my own. I'm like, God bless Ariana. I'm not that girl. You know, I'm just like, I'm here to do that, and you guys sit with that for a minute. But in order to communicate that with somebody, I understand how, like, as, you know, being a perfectionist and control freak, you'd want to like do, you know, you want to get into those moments and really get them right. But you're right.
100%.
Exactly. But it's like our language. The first time I heard you was with Escapism. Of course you have a voice, but just the way you so cleverly wrote that song, you know, and just tied in all the wordplay. Like, you know, I love something whenever you can tell, like, it's just so like just well written. It didn't sound like too forced. Like it was like effortlessly clever and, you know, really, it was just so cool.
Oh,
how did 070 Shake, by the way, come out?
That happened because the engineer that I worked on my album with also engineers for Shake. And when I discovered her music, I was like, oh my God. And it was nuts. I think also when I met her, I was at such a time where I was in the mill, like putting out music that I just really hated. And it was before I'd put my album together, you know, time before. And she's just said something really potent to me. And it's like, you know, if you don't like your music, then what are you doing this for? And, you know, it's so obvious, but you need someone to just
sometimes it's
smack you in the face with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, rah, you're right. I was like, you know, and then from then it began a mill of everything, and then I became independent, and then I really wanted her to be part of the album. Also, she's like a really good friend of mine.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's so lovely.
Aww.
Such a real one, and so talented.
Yeah, I'm a fan of hers too. So the two of you together, I was like, oh, favorite song. One from your album that I really love is the Oscar-winning Tears.
Oh, wow.
It's sick. That's like the kind of song that I feel like that would be like a fun song to sing.
Oh, you know? My God. Oh, like, my God. You singing that song, you would eat that song. Oh, what?
It's like a fun, that's like a fun singer song.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it is.
Is it fun to just dig your heels into? And just
it is. I love to sing it, but do you know what? It's one of the ones when you're singing it every night, you're like, oh, because it takes a lot out of you, isn't it, to do them notes. And I've been trying to work out how I can put it in a different place in my larynx so it kind of feels as grand, but I'm not killing myself to do it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because you know, sometimes I have to be honest, it's kind of like I've noticed this about certain things, because there will be new songs that are like more like recent off of things, and I'm like, I get so like in my head and fearful of like hitting a note, and I'm like, oh, like, and I can just tell it like gets in my head. Whereas then if I like compare it to, say, Lady Marmalade, where there's a lot of big notes, and I'm just like, they just, for whatever reason, I just, for some kind of memory, they've just sit, like you're saying, in the back of my throat, where it's just like, it's a very like, it just, my voice just goes there, but it is from like a very like, oh, I know this note, I know, I've done it 1,000 times, like I'm not afraid of it, because I know it's there, and it's there, you know, and it's just a programmed exactly what it is all the time. But yeah, the newer, I'm just like, wait, that note in Lady M or Burlesque, whatever, is higher.
It's literally
but like
there.
this one is lower, and I'm like terrified of it.
Yeah,
like,
so it could also be a mental thing in it. Yeah.
You know, I do a vocal warm-up routine. You know how what is your routine before a show? Or
my vocal routine, I'll just FaceTime my vocal coach, and he has like this giant straw that I like put into like a bottle of water.
I've never done the straw thing.
Really?
Does it help? Is it
quite
good?
Like it.
Really?
I think it's because it vibrates subtly any kind of mucusy, so that's really gross. But you know, any sort of phlegm or anything that's just sat on your vocals, it just helps like get it off.
It's so funny, you know. Sometimes I like the mucus because it like helps with the later.
It hasn't rocked, doesn't it? It does though. You're actually
it gives
hilarious.
me some grout.
You know when you're in the booth, and you need to clear your throat, but you're like, actually, let me not. Let's just see what happens. I feel you.
Back when my voice was like super clean, and I was baby vocalist, it was just like I had to like drink milkshakes to give me more
get
grit.
You I'm
obsessed.
What? That is so fire.
Yeah.
So do you think also like that cleanness is less so now, and in a good way?
The clean.
In your vocals, you know how you were saying like when you were really young, your voice is super clean.
Yeah, I mean like it's cute, but like I much prefer my voice now, to be honest, because it has experience, which is what I loved about all the singers that I grew up like loving and wanting to emulate and be inspired by, because they had, you know, that's why I just love soul and jazz, and it tells stories, and it's just like through the grit and whether it's the emotional like soaring and singing over the notes, or the grain and the grit that goes into like a rasp that only comes from experience. Yeah. You know, it's 100%. Like you can't force it or buy it. You just, you know, it just feels lived in. It does. So, you know, I'll take a little imperfection and a little, just to give me that rasp. Yeah, because I think it's cute, you know, like something that Linda Perry, you know, who in my experience with her for Strip, she got me to open up a lot out of like being this like over perfectionist, like vocalist in a way where she did teach me a lot about like the imperfections become the perfections, because it's where the emotion lies.
That's beautiful.
And it's true, you know, we don't want to be cracking all the time.
No,
but you know what I mean? There's like really raw, amazing things that come out with like a cry or a rasp in a voice, and yeah.
What is, to your memory, the toughest vocal performance you've ever had to do? And it could be maybe a mental thing, or maybe just the how big the song was.
Yeah, I think it's probably A Song for You, and I did it with Herbie Hancock. So yeah, it was on an album. I think it was an album called Duets, and it was like, so I did that song with Herbie Hancock, and it was just like,
oh my god,
the arrangement. Yeah, it was so intricate. It was so delicate. Like and it was full of ad libs. So it was a lot to try and perfect that live, and also Herbie is quite like experimental himself, of course. I mean, legend and like honor. So it was just, you know, that was just a big one. I sang Run to You for Whitney Houston in front of her song for Whitney. Like, that was a big one, which was nerve-wracking, but she couldn't have been like so like just more sweet and lovely, and just that was an honor.
Wow.
And difficult, that was Beats too. And then the third top most difficult was, it meant a lot to me, but it was also the funnest one for me. This was a fun one, was the James Brown tribute, It's a Man's World, for the Grammys.
I love that
that
song.
Was fun. That was a fun one. Yeah. It's just like when you just get to like just sink your teeth in and just go and just run. It was fun.
Wow. We should write together.
I would love that.
I would
really love that.
Are you joking? I would love that.
Thanks, Rolling Stone.
Oh, well, that's going to happen. Oh my God, that would be insane.
So manifesting that would be my answer.
Yes.